Alright. This one is going to be focused on giving some rules of thumb to people who are just about to start their PhD. I got invited to the usual sessions that the university organizes, where I remember when I started, we had a crop of PhDs that were at the final stages, kind of giving us tips and tricks. But I won't be able to attend it because I'm going to a little conference from the Royal Geographical Society about expeditions, because I'm kind of gathering that if I have this skill of not dying in the wild as an ultra runner, maybe there's jobs going to get data for people, but it's early days, so we'll figure out what happens with that. But that's why I won't be able to go back to Manchester for the date. Tell the starting PhDs to be, careful about such and such. Now, but I remember, it's important because I still remember one of the guys said, he had PhD guilt if he didn't work on the PhD for a while. That's why one of the rules of thumb for me has been to almost every day do something for the PhD. It doesn't matter how big, but just a bit, so you get the monkey off your back. So then you scale it appropriately and you see which time of the day you're most productive in. Like I've been diagnosed with ADHD, so for me it comes and goes, but my attention is very good in the morning. First thing, the coffee, quality writing session. I used to do long ones and then I would burn out, but that might not be like that for everyone that doesn't have a shorter attention span. But I noticed for me it was I used to have to do an hour and a half. Now I do half an hour. It's obviously different things, but just write. End of the day, it's a writing project. Yeah, so you want to have stuff that you're writing, rewriting, because then it helps you. Like for example, now I'm preparing for my final annual review before the final stretch, and I've been organizing everything I've done in one digital whiteboard. So I've been looking at how my ideas evolved over the last 5 years. Being able to go back through drafts has been helpful. And then in addition to the drafts, I'd recommend memoing, even if you're doing quantitative research, because you would be told that research memos are a part of qualitative methods, blah, blah. Just like rigorous note-taking, keeping track of things outside of your head is like the number 2 tip, I guess. The first one was just to find the time to write. So, I do this on the app called Trello, because it's easy to type notes, quick ones as well, because a memo doesn't need to be long. And I think this is what I've been realizing with memos, is just like kind of the acknowledgement that some of the ideas pop up and just burst into your attention kind of seemingly out of nowhere, but it's, you use methods, you do loads of stuff that like at some point it just pops up. But again, some of the tips I give might be too pragmatic because I'm an applied researcher in the day job. But still, I would say note taking as if you're in the field all the time. I can probably an extreme version of that, because I also keep track of what I'm doing every hour. I'm doing it for longer than the PhD. It's a tool from a guy called Cal Newport. He had a book about how to stay productive in a distracted age, and again, finding out that my distractions are very harmful to me. I was trying it out. So you basically write out what you want to do by the hour, gives you something to tick off that you've done, but you don't use it as like a punishment task list, but just to determine your capacity, so that if something new pops up, you gotta let go of being able to do something else on the list for the day. And then over time you become a lot better at scheduling tasks for yourself, because you get good at determining your bandwidth. Now this makes me think about another tip, which is, finding some principle of organizing your work rather than just working is great. I got lucky to get introduced to working in agile Scrum settings with digital people, programmers. They have to scope their work, score it, how much it's going to be, how long it's going to take, as separate processes, and creating backlogs of things and then massaging them through a process of chunking and doing things one at a time. So I do that. My memos go from a rough idea on a to-do list, a long one that I keep as a backlog, and then what I'm doing, then I refine them as I go along, and then I apply them. I treat an article I would have read and kept notes on Trello the same way, and it just moves into a Kanban board. Not familiar with Kanban, have a Google of what it is, as a simple, to-do, doing, done process where you try to minimize the work that you have going on and in doing, so that you can focus. I guess ultimately that process clicked for me when I read a book called The Knowledge Creating Company. It's Nonaka is the guy who wrote it. He was talking about how knowledge goes from implicit to explicit, from tacit to explicit. And I think that's where I realized otherwise I get really frustrated having ideas I can't communicate well, which I think when you're starting the PhD you have loads of. Because you kind of have that seed of what you want to do, but you got to learn how to formalize that and communicate it also that others understand it. So I try and find a process, and then I obviously go through multiple drafts of writing with my supervisors, which should make you think about how you can manage your supervisors who are busier than you. If you expect them to always be guiding you, at some point the roles flip a bit. So at first they'll probably be guiding you a lot, but then eventually you just have to give them something to work with rather than just chat or just where it needs to be explicit, it needs to be drafts. You just write and they critique. It's a writing gig. And I say this because, again, I struggle with sitting down to write. An ultra runner, I have a full-time job. Sitting down to write is difficult, that's why I do it. But if you're doing a full-time PhD, just write. What else is helpful? It's not helpful to... I got a friend who I was asking whether I should start a PhD, and he spent 3 hours telling me why I shouldn't because it's so difficult and blah blah. But it's like, if you've started, this is why you want to do it. You don't want it to be easy. It's a tough, mind-altering thing. That doesn't mean you shouldn't accept it as that, which I had to accept. I didn't know I had ADHD until I started this. I didn't know I need to do yoga and meditation and all that stuff just to chill me out when I'd get so worked up when I'm writing. It's great, it's exciting, but it can burst over, and so many of us treat mental activity as if it's like this separate thing, and then everybody that's in academia is like, oh, I'm anxious, whatever. No fucking shit, it's a tough job. It's really tough. I don't think I'll make it in academia. Like, we'll see. But you know, it's difficult. It's a difficult job. So, but again, you kind of wanted it to be difficult. What else could be helpful? I mean, I wish there was more explicit talk about like how does the whole thing work, because that's not a part of what you learn. Like, you learn the written stuff, like you get training, but how does it work to be a scientist? Like, I didn't know that you didn't have to be an academic to be a scientist. And there is practical routes. Like, I'm a chartered scientist now. I've gone and got my accreditation from the Science Council. It means a lot to me. It's not just an academic thing, but science, you can participate. Like, how do you participate in the fields you're interested in outside of the PhD? Like, pick the conferences you want to go to and go see the people and find the role models. Like, I got exposed to my PhD area by my previous job, and then I kind of volunteered for a digital, for a website, and went to the conference to write for them. At the first conference I was at, I was like mesmerized. Like, the people I had read and I saw them in person, it was like, wow, you know. And then I was able to present bits of my PhD to those people. It's nice. It's very good. So think about role models. You know, don't be anti-scientific by becoming ideological because your favorite superstar academic said something. I had to flip my views a lot about some of the work that the people I initially was following, you know, kind of what I thought their work is about, and then you get deeper into the topic and you see the debates. So yeah, I'd say use the doctoral training to write about the PhD. Like, they might give you silly assignments, but write it for your PhD. Like, even the quantitative one, they tend to give you data. You have to make up, you know, the stuff behind the data. So make it up. It's about your PhD. Like, keep focusing on it. Like, what is it about? And then the parts that you find the most interesting, be open to understanding more about like how you can answer the questions that you've got methodologically better. Like, I thought I'd be doing a mixed method study about something that's kind of more experiential and subjective, and you'll find out that's difficult to do objectively, quantitatively. It's not impossible, and then you learn that qualitative research isn't this like mystical thing. It's a well-developed set of tools as well that you're going to learn. So let the experienced people show you what's available to you before committing too hard too quickly, because you know that I know contradicts itself with you know, you need to be writing, but you're always going to throw away some of the writing anyway. But you just need to make explicit from tacit, you know, so that you can see where you're leaning and what you need to learn. And pick I mean, for me, I just couldn't believe how much I enjoyed the philosophy training, and it's been, you know, it's stuck with me, I would say, because people, I noticed like a lot of people find that actually kind of anxiety inducing, because, you know, philosophy shows you the questions we still have open, or tries to problematize things into, you know, how do you know you're you, and you go like, what? I didn't know that was a problem. So I would say read the reading list to give you the breadth of exposure. And if you want to, because it's difficult to organize yourself, because it's more broad than science, but read the reading list from A to Z, like as it's given. That's what I did, because I was like, Well, this is going to be confusing. What do I do? How do I put order to this? Just read the whole reading list. And you can get a lot of that stuff on audiobooks. Philosophy is way better as audio. Like, that's how I deal with it. Like, I run or I walk and I listen to philosophy, because otherwise, sitting and reading that stuff, it wasn't even like, some of it was probably not intended to be written, because it's old discourse stuff, like talking. And I mean, just read philosophy. I'd recommend everyone, like, remember, this is it's supposed to be a doctor of philosophy you get at the end. You know, I know we focus on our practical stuff, like, yo, you're in the business school, you know, you're gonna study this and this, la la dee la la la. When else in your life are you gonna be justified in going back and talking to dead people? You know, I mean, philosophers, right? What else could be helpful? Get good at getting feedback and integrating it into the piece. Like, how the hell are you gonna be an expert? Like, getting the feedback of experienced people, like your supervisors and your reviewers, seriously. When they give you feedback and give you something to read, go and read it. They're probably right, because you don't know yet. I mean, it's difficult, but it's gonna help you out, because I get a sense of accomplishment and finality if I definitely find out by myself if something is definitely wrong, right? It's good to get that feeling, because it's a finality. You definitely cocked it up, and then you can move on. But think about how much of a waste of time exploring these dead ends would be, and if you don't have the time, trust the people ahead of you. And again, those people ahead of you might not be living people. They could be philosophers that struggle with those questions and they said, we don't know. It's going to be difficult to tell. And then you get more comfortable with uncertainty. Because I think there's an underlying theme of the PhD, which is you get more comfortable with not knowing. All right, if anyone wants to get in touch with me, please do. If you hit a wall and you just need to talk to someone, I'm here, because you know, that's happened to me along the journey. Other PhDs, we always support each other, because as much as your topic is yours and unique contribution, the process is familiar to us all.